Hello.
Katie, it's nice to
Welcome.
see you.
How's everyone doing today? Can you hear us? Everything good? I hope so. Welcome to another episode of the Death of Certainty Show. We have a wonderful cast today. Professor Meat brought this topic to me and insisted I host a panel on it, so I decided to give into and acquiesce to his wishes. Hello,
Wow.
Kaylee, Buckle, Mariva, SAC, Mad Lad, KO Dave, all of you great people. Glad to see you. Glad to have you here. Today's topic is an interesting one. It's one that's kind of near and dear to all of our streamers' hearts right now. Can you mute yourself, Kaylee, while you're not talking? Because you're still getting that static in the background. I'm sorry.
If you call me Kaylee, we're gonna have a
Katie,
problem.
sorry.
I
Katie,
will mute myself.
I apologize. I apologize. Okay. Yeah, I know. I apologize. Give me a second, gang. So the prompt. The topic for today. With the recent banning of Destiny, the question arises. Are the policies of Twitch designed to protect communities actually working? Or are they being co-opted to bully others off the platform? Are they being enforced well and fairly? What adjustments, if any, do we need to make to Twitch policy to protect creators and allow for entertaining and educational discussion? Let's get into it, gang. So we're just gonna start at JasonSociety, and then we're just gonna go clockwise around the room. JasonSociety, tell everyone who you are, why you're here, and what you think.
Sure. I'm JasonSociety, Jason_Society on Twitch. I do a weekly stream called Stonercast where I bring on members of the Twitch community that smoke and we talk all things weed. Aside from that, I do debates like this and a lot of political streaming. And where I stand on the issue is I think that there's always room for improvement around these policies to make it a better, more safe, more inclusive environment for all streamers. The specific issue we're talking about with this individual, I mean, there must have been something that he did, obviously, that resulted in him being banned off the platform. That said, while I think that you have these rules in place and they need to be enforced, and we need to understand that it is for the better, and not only that, but they have to worry about their bottom line, and are things being said on their platform that are going to hurt their bottom line. And additionally, what I would say that they could do that I think needs to be bettered is that when they choose to ban, when they choose to take those actions, they need to provide clear examples of what the individual did that would result in them being banned off the platform. I do think that the notifications and the way in which they communicate these bans is lacking severely. But outside of that, I think for the most part, the policies do a pretty good job of keeping everybody safe. There's always going to be a potential that these policies can be abused, but I think it happens so few and far between. I wouldn't consider that necessarily something that I would look at as I'll just say I look at that as more of an externality. That's how I can put it, and that's what I have to say about that.
Okay, thank you. Katie, who is adamantly not Kaylee, but Katie. Your turn.
I'm Katie. I'm Datkatee, Katie with 2 E's, and that Doe, DOE, on Twitch. Yeah, so unclear why Destiny got banned. Not sure why. I don't think that's the main issue, though. I think, and Wick and Professor Mead know this because we talked about it a little bit. I think there's an issue with like private corporations just basically having a free hand to do whatever the fuck they want. And the easiest way to probably make it matter in any capacity that a bunch of people who use Twitch sit around talking about what Twitch, the company, should do to be more fair to its users and stuff like that is just push for regulation. because private companies only care about their bottom line. And I think it is more complicated than them just getting sued because somebody said something super bad. And Professor Mead knows more about that, so I'm sure he'll clarify later on. Um, but yeah, I don't think you can get private companies to do anything that is not in their financial interests. And while I think that's a nice idea, Jason, it's better for them to not give very specific examples of why they're banning people. So yeah, it just seems like a regulation thing, which Americans don't like. So that's going to be my position. That's that.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for being here. Next up, we have Erudite, please.
Yeah, okay. Sorry, I'm just fighting with technology for like 2 seconds. There we go. So basically, my overall position is kind of the same as it has been. I would echo for a bit of what Katie said. There's a big issue for Twitch as far as regulation in that most of the streamers don't know why specifically he was canceled. And that's led to a lot of kind of speculation and concern on streamers of being like, is it that I can't say certain things? Like, what is it? Which I think is just kind of an unclarity that just impacts streamers overall. And I don't think that Twitch should be leading to more confusion and not less when it comes to their bans. I do think private companies fundamentally have like the right to make any policy decision that they have. And then the reality is that people who support that private business have to decide whether they're okay with those decisions and then kind of vote with their dollars. And that includes streamers deciding, you know, if they have a major issue with certain policies and they don't want to support it, then they would need to look at other venues and kind of decide if they're willing to deal with the benefits of Twitch that kind of are counter to some of the cons that come with it.
Again, thank you for being here. Thank you for those words. We are going to go to Ninetails next. Ninetails, please.
Hi, I'm Ninetails, and just off the bat, for anybody who's watching and wondering, just having some lighting issues today. That's why I'm not on camera. I'm just a pro streamer, you know. So yeah, you can find me at twitch.tv/Ninetailscosmicfox. That's the word 9. Tails is in like an animal tail, and then Cosmic Fox. I'm also on Twitter, where I probably technically put out more content since I only stream in probably once or twice a week. My Twitter is at M9Scarlet. That's the letter M. The number 9 is Scarlet with 2 T's. So yeah, when I was approached by this, it was like, do you support Destiny being banned? Was what I thought the thing was. So I did not see the prompt in the group message, and in my head I was like, okay, I can't speak for Twitch. And we can take what happened like subjectively. You can either take it as it's not fair because Twitch doesn't always enforce certain policies. Like I just read that they are actually against defamation. I feel like half of Twitch politics has violated that rule. So you could either look at it that they're being unfair to him because they don't actually enforce policies, and then they're suddenly doing that with Destiny, or you can look at it as like finally they, or not finally, but you know, maybe it was so bad that like it overrules a lot of these policies. And I am going to point out that the way Twitch handled this seems to denote that it was quite severe, particularly in the community guidelines. It says that with harassment, it'll have increasingly severity when or enforcement when the behavior is targeted, personal, graphic, repeated, prolonged, incites further abuse, or involves threats of violence or coercion. So I'm inclined to assume there is something like that in this, and that it is probably a harassment thing just based on how Destiny's community tends to operate. But I wasn't there, and I can't justify that directly. I definitely do think Twitch could probably be better at how it enforces things, but I can't think of any particular rules that I want changed. And I will say, as far as like politics discourse goes on Twitch and stuff like that, I'd rather see a lot of smaller streamers with like a diverse way of approaching topics who aren't so inclined to, for instance, call trans people brain dead or subhuman, especially since that contributes to the violence that trans people have historically faced. So personally, I'm kind of glad that somebody who's taking up so much space is gone.
Okay, thank you for that. Next, we have V1X. V1.x. How would you like me to address you?
Just call me V1.
V1,
And,
gotcha.
Yeah.
Please.
So I'm V1. Pronouns, I use any pronouns. And my general position is just that Twitch should be a lot more transparent in the way it bans people and the way it enforces its TOS, but they have a right to have that TOS. And Destiny definitely should have been banned because he was doing a lot of things that violate their TOS. And there isn't really much more to it than that, honestly.
Okay. Thank you for that. Last but certainly not least, we have, and I'll sing this because someone redeemed the points. Professor Meat, please tell us what you think. Please tell us what you think. Tell us what you think right now.
I'd love to, Wick, and thank you, my friend. Thanks for having me. So there's a lot of people have already gotten into a lot of very particular arguments, which I know can happen sometimes in opening statements. I just don't want to get too much into like the particulars. I want to get into that in the panel, but I'll just say try to say loosely and quickly. We can either talk about Twitch or Destiny here, basically. If we're talking about Twitch, I think that their current prescriptions and the way that they do things is definitely problematic and probably harmful for the things that we care about and to the discourse overall. And at the very least is like blatantly hypocritical, whether it's either problematic for financial reasons or blatantly hypocritical if they're doing it for political reasons, and also harmful to their cause as well. And if we're talking about Destiny, Destiny's good for the platform, he's good for us, and he's good for most of the causes that people even the people who try to criticize him for his views on the left. He's usually, I think, more good for his causes that he defends and those people defend than they tend to be. In some cases, maybe even because of the edginess with which he weaponizes rhetoric, because it opens up avenues of de-radicalization. That's basically my two fundamental positions here.
Okay, thank you for that. So we're going to open it up, but before I do, Ninetails, I won't be able to see you raise your hand, so you'll have to DM me if you want in the line. Does that make sense? Yeah, try to attack each other's points, not each other. If I interrupt, please respect that. I'm just going to try to keep the conversation going, and we can go through either the lens of Destiny or the lens of the toss. It depends on what you guys want. This is your panel as much as mine. So, Katie has our first hand raised. So go ahead, please.
So I have a question for V1 and Erudite. So you both said that you believe that private companies have the right to write whatever TOS that they want. And I guess on like the general level that obviously they have that ability, that's fine. Just seems like a truth that private companies do have the right to do that. My question is more like, do you think that there should be an avenue for outside intervention, or if there should be certain regulations or certain like policies saying when you're writing a TOS, now us as like whatever external force that is in charge of that, we're going to be there to make sure you enforce it properly or do it like transparently enough. So I would like for either or both of you to like clarify what you meant by it, because we might be on the same page.
Yeah, I mean, I guess to make it more clear, I'm vehemently opposed to Destiny's ban. I think it was mostly the result of a lot of like online kind of mass reporting, which is a really big issue on a lot of platforms actually. In that there's oftentimes like bots or systems, I'm not sure what it seems to be, but there's like major people who just report and get people taken off of platforms, not due to actually violations, but due to like en masse reporting, which is a really big issue to me. I absolutely think that there's probably time for an internet bill of rights. I think that that's fundamental. For example, when it comes to private businesses, there was kind of an argument way back in the day about whether you could let certain races into your workplace, and then certain bills and stuff were introduced to basically bar certain policies. Title IX, for example, also came in to like make sure that women could be in sports and stuff. So I think absolutely some level of government intervention is probably needed at some point when it comes to these major tech companies. What that specifically looks like is going to be a really complicated conversation, though, and I don't want to be so quick as to be like, this is the bill that I've drafted, because that would be nuanced.
Yeah, a little bit. I just want to clarify that when I say that companies should be allowed to have their TOS, I don't think the government should intervene in what private companies do in that sense, especially like tech companies online. Is I don't really like the idea of the government messing with the internet at all, really. So that's kind of my position on that.
Jason,
Are you-
yeah.
so-
if no one else is speaking, you don't have.
So
to
are
raise
you
your hand,
against?
can
Are
just
you
go in.
against? Are you against any kind of regulation of like any kind of legal responsibility assigned to entities on the internet at all? Because we
Oh,
already
no,
do
not-
things
of
like
course
this.
not. Just not like
So
how
s-
they moderate their
sure.
platforms, other than just remove illegal stuff. You know.
But what? So
Continue, please, and then Jason, then Ninetails. So go ahead.
so what? That's the thing though, is so that we would be. Oh, sorry. Were you talking to me when you said continue?
Yes, please continue.
Okay, yeah. So I just wanted to ask, so basically that's the whole thing, is that we would be talking in this hypothetical about moving something into a category of something being illegal. So I just feel like being like, oh, well, we just don't want them to do something that's illegal on their platform. Well, that's what we're talking about. We think maybe
Well, yeah.
we should change what things are legal, right? So and that's not to say necessarily that I disagree with this position. It's just to make the point that I don't find it a very useful argument to make that we just shouldn't be regulating these things at all. Because that's the whole point of like making things illegal aside and what's worth regulating and not. I generally directionally think it's worthwhile to have skepticism of legislation of both free speech and also the internet. But I think in the same way that there are worthy determinations to be made about free speech, there can be some worthy determinations about Twitch. I think there's a cost-benefit analysis to be made, and we should be able to propose, even in the abstract, legislative ideas like an internet bill of rights, or just forcing companies who pay people, whether they're contractors or employees or whatever new term we might have. It seems reasonable to have some kind of standard for clarity when people could reasonably be relying upon a source of income to like live. That's a pretty reasonable thing with not a downside as I see it.
Okay, I'll let you respond real quick, and then we got Jason Society, Ninetails, Katie, and Erudite. Sorry.
I do definitely think that these companies should have a responsibility to their employees in that sense. But when I mean like illegal stuff, I mean like child pornography, that kind of thing. Just stuff that obviously should not be legal for like harm reasons. But in terms of like how they pay and how they treat their employees, they should really be counted as employees in a sense, past a certain point. If you're considering people who are making like millions on your platform just contractors, I think that's a little bit messed up in some sense.
Well, we could just protect contractors, you know? I mean, it's not messed up if we just have legislation that protects contractors like what they're doing with DoorDash. And while I wouldn't necessarily propose to either to know enough about that legislation to necessarily agree with all of it, I'm biased because I like it as a DoorDasher. But I don't see why we can't at least consider things like this as legislating the problems. That seems like a reasonable way to fix it, you know?
Okay.
Oh, for
Jason,
sure.
I disagree wholeheartedly. If you don't like what's going on a platform, go make your own fucking platform. That's why we have the goddamn internet. You can go fucking take the source code from Twitter, just like Trump did with his fucking Truth Social, and create your own fucking place where you can do whatever the fuck you want. If you don't like it, don't be on the fucking platform. There's other shit you can do. There's other places you can go. You're not bound by this platform. There's 1,000 other platforms out there. Don't like it, tough shit, leave.
You see, I find that reasonable. I find that reasonable. The only part I would disagree with, perhaps, is making them mutually exclusive. I think both of these sound like great ideas. I'd be good with either. And I think that they're both possible solutions. I just think that we shouldn't use the fact that that might be a way to achieve something through social pressure as a reason to categorically deny arguments against why we might be able to more quickly and just as and more easily and perhaps even more effectively solve it with legislation.
I also think like the idea like just make your own platform forehead is like immediately it feels like akin to any sort of reductive argument of just make your own. It's like, okay, well, making one of these platforms that is successful and financially serviceable and reaches multiple people is a multi-million-dollar investment alone. So it's like I can't just go make my own platform, right? I have to oftentimes navigate within the platforms that are available. If I was rich enough, sure, maybe like Nick Fuentes who went and did that, but like the reality is like that's not my position. I don't have a ton of money, and so I don't feel like that is actually like the opt solution.
Okay, Ninetails, Katie, and yeah, then Dion and anyone else. Go ahead.
So yeah, gonna roll things back a bit. I will say that I support the idea of an Internet Bill of Rights. Obviously, we can't have something that supports violence for marginalized groups because then we're effectively pushing them out by giving rights that don't actually protect people in the end. However, we are going to have to, if we're going to have that, then we are essentially saying, yes, we want government to have control over these things, which, to be fair, I'm more against corporations having unfettered control than governments. However, what this needs to look like is a huge question, because obviously we can say like this brings up like the idea like people are going to have fair trials and stuff like that in order for this to be in order for things to be enacted on, which in and of itself is pretty insane, like cost wise and logistically in general. So I'm not against it. I just think it's an easier said than done thing. As far as just making your own platform, I think it's a good point that not everyone can make their own platform. And yeah, like it would be the ideal, but it's not ideal in practice.
So actually, I think that while I agree with I think that you've brought up reasonable ideas. I just don't think they're necessarily true in practice. Well, so I just want to address two things real quick. So with the idea of allowing government control, I agree it's worthwhile to be skeptical of allowing government control of entities we want to protect. But I don't think you can just because of that make an equation with having legislation of these entities with like allowing government control. In some situations, government control is just completely fine, and it's not necessarily giving them some kind of control that we have any problem with. But the more practical thing that I would say is that the idea of it's good to be wary of these practical determinations. But if we're worried about the cost, a lot of the time it's actually super easy to regulate internet entities, not to 100% effectiveness, but to like basically what I'm trying to say is a lot of these things are self-regulating to a certain degree because people on the internet have an interest in
things. I meant like the cost of like if you had to have a fair trial in court to prove that you didn't break the Bill of Rights or whatever, that could be very costly to you as a person. If we were to like, flesh this out to something where like people's rights are respected, we probably would need fair.
Well, no, so the Bill of Rights in this case would apply to people who have large platforms, not to individual people on the internet.
Oh, okay. Well, when I think of an internet Bill of Rights, I assume it applies to all people.
In this case, it would not.
Okay. Then I have a question for you. What do you mean by large platform?
I think that's a worthy question to make. It might be, you could say, and we can have that discussion right now if we'd like, could be a social media platform it could be about the intention, the stated intention by the company. Could be about beyond a certain size. A corporation that has a social media platform is probably a vague enough definition that we could probably, when talking about legislation, try to get some more wieldy specifications of that definition if necessary, but I think it's a pretty wieldable concept, at least. A corporation with an intention to operate as a social media platform.
Okay. You guys don't always have to raise your hand. If there's silence, you could just jump in.
So
I could just keep talking, but
what does this Bill of Rights look like to you? How do you formulate this Bill of Rights? What's contained in said Bill of Rights? And what guarantees do that give to the people that are not like these major platforms that also may still need a voice in this space?
So I think I can offer an answer to that. Oh, sorry, I've been talking a lot. You can go.
I was just going to offer, I think like potentially if you'd be willing to, Jason, would you be willing if we narrowed the Internet Bill of Rights specifically to maybe like platforms that have content creators that get paid? Because the Internet Bill of Rights is going to be a really broad topic because it has to include like a ton of shit. Would you be okay if we just narrow in on this precise topic just for the sake of this debate?
Sure.
Okay.
Awesome.
I was going to say, when it comes to content creators alone, I think one really big issue that a lot of content creators right now on Twitch are nervous about is the lack of transparency for the ban. And a ban that's permanent immediately constitute an immediate loss of wages. And if somebody's full-time streaming, that means they've completely lost their full source of income. And there probably needs to be more transparency for what actually causes, because like they'll use like these like kind of broad language terms like breaking TOS of like hate speech, but it won't be actually really specific. Like if you actually like look through Destiny's work specifically, like he doesn't actually infringe any of those explicit statements about hate speech, right? Certain slurs and stuff like that. Like he's a veteran of Twitch, so he knows his TOS really well. So now everyone's left being like, okay, what specifically? Because he's had a lot of spicy debates recently. Which one specifically was the issue? And we don't really know. There's just a lot of speculation that it's like the trans-related issues, but for all we know, it could be because of like having like Nick Fuentes on stream for like 5 minutes. Like we just don't know, and so there's a lot of creators that are like now nervous of being like, is my job at risk because like I'll say an opinion that Twitch just doesn't like and get cut? I don't know that that's necessarily realistic, but that's a genuine fear that I think that there should be some level of recourse and protection for streamers for.
You don't have to go as far as Nick Fuentes. Like him, you know, doing stuff with Lauren Southern is probably good enough.
Can I just ask, can I typify a concept for all of us so we don't have to talk around it? Can we all agree, can anyone provide me with the downside of forcing someone like Twitch with legislation to be clear in the reasons for taking away people's income? Just as much as we generally think that it's important for people to be clear in general for these things.
I would concede that, and that's what I said at the front of things. I absolutely agree that there needs to be transparency with the reasoning as to why, so that people can make a better assessment as to what their future is on the platform and whether or not they want to be on that platform.
Yeah, but he's
I would say
asking
that's the
what would
first
be
step
your
in the Bill of Rights.
Just let Katie go, and then Ninetails, and then whoever else go.
Well, Professor Mead is asking what would be your objection to regulating that or legislating that. So not just people on Twitch saying Twitch should be more transparent, but actually advocating for someone actually holding Twitch accountable, because none of us can, no matter how many panels we make and how many thousands of views it's going to have. And we can talk about how social pressures can make private companies do stuff, and sure, it can. But Professor Mead is asking very good questions. Like, literally, what is the downside?
Well, it's an answer
even. Legalizing, legislating, you know?
Yeah, because Jason, and that's specifically really, it's a question as an answer to your question, JasonSociety, because you asked what would the Bill of Rights contain, and while I haven't thought too much about beyond the first step, but I think a pretty good first step is probably exactly what we're talking about. It's basically a worker protection issue as I see it. Whether or not we realize it, like I think it's pretty scummy when corporations try to pretend like people that they're paying an amount of money that could reasonably be something that someone starts to rely upon to like live. I think it's pretty scummy when we allow corporations to get away with taking that away from people without clarity. And so when we can maybe talk, I don't know if we have to talk about what would be beyond the first step in the Internet Bill of Rights, but if I'm making an Internet Bill of Rights for corporations, I think that should be, if that's the only inclusion, I would be okay with that.
Well, yeah, that's what I said. I would concede that point. I would concede that point because at that point they're a worker and Twitch is making money off of them too. You know, it goes both ways. You know, they're making ad revenue and whatnot. So I can agree that, yeah, you should know why you're getting fired, basically, because you're a worker at that point. You should know why you're getting fired. I would expect that from any other job, and it's a job. And for that, that specific area, I absolutely agree with you. I don't disagree.
So are we all basically in agreement with that then? With that, like that would be okay? That would be good if we could get that to happen?
Like, okay, there's a difference between like private transparency and public transparency, right? So like, Twitch talking to the person and being like, this is why we fired you, sure. But there's two issues with it being publicly transparent. The first is that it can reveal personal info, either about the person who is being banned or the person who they targeted. That's an issue. It can get them targeted more. And the second issue is stochastic violence. So if somebody were to do stochastic violence and advocate for terrorism, and then Twitch would be like, hey, we banned this person for advocating for terrorism, that could have the inverse effect of actually promoting that action. So
do you think there should be clear standards for what stochastic terrorism is in this case?
Not really. It's just an example.
No?
It's
well,
just
hold on,
an example.
but if
it's
we
an
were
example of something that could happen, is all I'm saying.
But so basically you are advocating as stochastic terrorism as an example of why you don't necessarily need to have clear standards.
Right, because what I'm saying is that it can it can lead to mimicry of people doing the same thing. Like for instance,
you know what else it can lead to?
Let's say I'm really pissed off at Twitch because I recently got kicked off for having an account that violates TOS, and then I see that a user has used the N-word. And so, and that really pisses off Twitch. So now I might feel motivated to start using the N-word every chance I get on Twitch.
You'll be
but this is pure speculation. I could imagine an infinite amount of reasons why having unclear standards could potentially go wrong. It's not any more useful than your speculation. Because I could form a company and I could get big and I could start equating stochastic terrorism, even though it wouldn't be fair. I could use whatever standard I want. I could start equating stochastic terrorism with anyone that advocates for trans rights. That doesn't mean it would be okay. Maybe it would be problematic and worth legislating against.
You're hyper-focusing on this when the point is mimicry.
Well, it's the example that you use, so I'm going to disqualify it as
quick,
evidence.
Okay, well that's why I immediately followed up.
And then we're gonna let Ninetails finish. You can respond. Then Katie wants in, and yeah, we'll go.
I immediately followed up with a less specific example, since clearly extending things logically is a little bit of a struggle here.
Oh, okay. Well, I just in case you didn't realize, when you give evidence to substantiate a conclusion, and someone disqualifies the only evidence you've provided, then that generally is considered a disqualification of the conclusion.
You didn't even
if
wait
you provided
for me
another
to explain it. As soon as I said stochastic violence, you were ready to go.
All right. Well, do you have another example? I was ready to go. I'm always ready to go.
If someone gets kicked for saying the N-word, people who are on Twitch to create problems will see it as a reason to use the N-word.
Great. Okay. So great. So the exact same problem applies here. Is if I don't have, we can use the N-word for the same example. I just will replace my sentence with it. In the same way that you could have one company totally subjectively determining, or wait, no, that's not a good example, because that's a very clear thing that we already advocate against, that we have specific prescriptions against. That's in the terms of service, very specific things about that. We're just advocating for being clear about the communication when we talk to the streamer and legislating that. So that's already is.
They should do it privately, not publicly.
But that's the Okay, well, if they did that, it's going to be shared.
That's what you would do in any workplace. In any workplace, you don't disclose that shit publicly. Like, it's private between you.
Okay, how do we know they didn't do that
worker.
though? And Destiny just didn't say it.
What, they showed the email?
He's showed the email
all the time.
Twitch has never been. Are we all pretending that Twitch hasn't always been obscure about their standards?
No, they're
That's
intentionally
what I'm
obscure.
saying.
It's
I'm
beneficial for a private business to be obscure about these things, because then they can kind of willy-nilly hand things out that don't look politically good, that their advertisers don't like, that they just don't want to have on Twitch because of multiple factors. So like, a private business is always going to be incentivized to be vague about certain termination policies, and the government has to come in and enforce certain specificity for the protection of workers, because this vague language, as you're talking about, is always going to impact minority content creators first and foremost, because systemic shit does this stuff.
I'm not saying to have vague language in TOS. I'm talking about whether or not specifically when you ban somebody, you should tell the world about why you banned them.
Do you ever think that there's I do have a question for Ninetails. Do you ever think there's a situation where it would benefit the society and the company both to be very clear about why something was banned? Can you think of an example?
I'd have to think about it, but I'm not going to say that's not possible.
Sure. Okay. Katie, please.
So, first of all, I thought that's what you were going for, that basically Destiny might have gotten a more like specific reason and he's not sharing. I think most people are not going to buy that. I mean, sure, everything's possible, but I don't think anyone actually believes
You would have
that.
to believe in a massive Twitch streamer conspiracy
Let Katie finish.
because
let
they all
Katie,
agree with it.
Professor
Just to be clear, I just haven't seen
I'm
the
agreeing,
same
I'm agreeing.
email. I haven't seen the same email you guys have seen, that's all.
I can post it if you'd like. Or the
I'd
quote.
like to just very quickly like engage with two things. The mimicry thing, yeah, I wholeheartedly disagree on that. And also, I think in a platform like Twitch and YouTube, I wouldn't die on that hill, but I think most people on this panel would say that sharing privately with the person you're banning is fine. But I'd actually argue in places like Twitch and YouTube, it makes sense to make that public, because you would want that to give examples to other employees what they should and shouldn't do and what would be the consequences of them doing that. So this isn't, while we are treating it as a place of work, it's not quite the same as just like you going on too many pee breaks and then your boss firing you for it. It's public engagement. In a way, you could see some Twitch streamers as almost like public figures. And while they don't they don't have the same standards, like there are different rules of engagement, and we can discuss like how specific they should be, but like, I think that's valid. Also, the mimicry thing. If you get banned for saying the N-word and then more people say the N-word, hopefully they'll get banned too, because that just makes sense. Also,
I just don't think it makes sense when we know for a fact that, like, and I think a better example is like transphobia, right? Transphobia becomes popularized and normalized by it existing. And so we're not directly normalizing transphobia when we ban it. But again, it gives people the notion that it can be weaponized. It reminds people, hey, this is something that you can weaponize. And that's
So
all I'm
is
saying
the
is that
solution not
we know about human behavior, that talking about this stuff can lead to it happening.
But transphobia is being discussed, and then people are trying to address it by banning it. So wouldn't that be acting against transphobia, even if banning it gives it more attention
So
potentially?
if I'm a platform that's potentially responsible for the actions of my users, I don't want to set up something where I have to ban more people, because I'm still especially if I'm technically responsible for creating that cascade of events.
Wait,
But
what do you
wait, what
mean
do you
by
Okay, just
what communities now? What?
No, I'm saying, like, okay, let's say instead, like, I'm a chaperone at a party, right? And I know that if I got to think of a good example here, but I know that if I try to take the pop away, everyone's going to riot, and now I'm going to have to deal with 50 unruly people instead of dealing with one person who's had too much pop. It's such a bad
We're
example. I'm sorry.
talking
Okay,
about
it's
couldn't
fine.
think,
Could
I
I-
couldn't
How
think
about
of a good
this?
okay.
We're gonna let Erudite, then we're gonna let
didn't get to
Professor
finish,
B.
though.
I'm only gonna
You went
do like
back and
Socratic
forth for a
questioning
while.
for you, Ninetails.
I
I
just-
actually just want to understand
We'll
your
let-
position,
we'll
so
let you
I'm gonna
respond, too,
toss it
so
back
go
to you right away, because I'm struggling to follow kind of your concerns here. So you're talking a lot about mimicry. Your concern, my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that you're concerned that if we see a certain ban and people get upset by it, that we'll see more people acting out that same whatever behavior as kind of like a protest against the ban. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, and maybe this, like, I didn't follow this phenomenon, but maybe the cracker thing is a good example.
Okay. So you're why do you? I think I'm struggling to follow because I don't see much evidence for this. What's your concern with the mimicry? Because we've kind of said, well, if they do mimic, then there would still be follow up. And just I believe the C word is actually a violation of TOS, and I'm streaming in Wicca streaming. So if we could just
shit!
the word, it's okay.
Oh,
I just
yeah,
want to.
please.
I think
I
it's
just
only if
wanna
you
let you
call
know.
someone that, though. Just to be clear, it's only if you call someone.
Okay, well,
Regardless, I just
let's-
wanna-
Yeah, let's
TOS is so
not
confusing.
get
I'm
me.
sorry.
Yeah, please.
That's okay.
Thank you.
So
Go.
What are you doing about
what's
Twitch's
the-
clear standards? So
Yeah, what's the harm that you're concerned about precisely? Just because I want to make sure I'm understanding you well.
Okay, yeah. So again, it's more of a principle than, like, any direct harm that I can point to. And I just see, like, if we're trying to stop transphobia, we need to prevent doing actions which are going to incite further actions of transphobia, especially in, like, platform specific places.
Like
So I could be
stopping
wrong
people
that
from
mimicry is an
expressing
issue.
transphobic stuff.
I just think that this is a component of human behavior that is reliable on online spaces. And to the degree that mimicry is an issue, if Twitch were to be public about something like that and then cause more transphobia to happen, they'd actually be making the space less safe for trans people, not more.
Right. And I can understand that as far as like if that is what happens. I guess my concern is I don't see a lot of evidence of that specifically happening. My concern is that when we have unspecific language, it actually results in more unjust banning. Whereas if we have really precise language about what will actually get you banned, then we can precisely target language and words that are transphobic in nature, which is going to be evolving all the time, but that list of excluded words can be increased. And obviously, any policy like this will always have a space of grayness. But I think a company should do their best to reduce that grayness as possible, because I think that there is more space for systemic bias when there's more kind of loose policy.
And those unjust bans, just to be clear, I honestly, I would assert with just as much confidence as you, and could prove with just as much evidence as you, that backlash, I suspect, is actually, that you'll get from unjust bans, is actually probably more than the backlash you're going to get from opening up the field of play to potential mimicry.
Okay, V1, if you wanted to say something, and also, if you
I had
wanted to
audio
respond, please.
problems.
Oh, well, I still had...
Just for Erudite, really quick, I would like to see more specific things, but we also have to make sure they're not so precise that people can just get away with the action and while finding loopholes in the process. That's all.
Okay. Are you mostly presumed with controlling this behavior from purely a top-down approach, or do you think like a bottom-up approach is also potentially viable?
Never thought about this, and I'm not sure what a bottom approach would
Sure.
look like.
Maybe should I clarify just because I might be using like really dumb esoteric language potentially?
Yeah, I'd like to respond to that.
Yeah, so in my mind, a top-down policy would be like it's kind of a blunt tool. So Twitch is going to make a policy about specifically what violates TOS, and then it kind of trickles down and impacts all of us. Whereas a bottom-up approach, I view it as kind of like a community systemic process. So it's going to be, say, I see a content creator who's actively engaging in really harmful rhetoric. I think there was a content creator just like last week who was being, I would say, pretty explicitly transphobic and dodging TOS, right? So there was a really big issue there. I'd rather see that handled at a community level of telling that person why they're a bad person, why their ideas are dog shit, and like debating it really rigorously and kind of disproving their ideas systematically rather than just requiring on Twitch to have to be like in these vague situations. Because I know so many of my trans friends who get constantly TOS banned for things of just being like mad and like speaking. And so, yeah, I'll end there.
I think I've actually put myself against a lot of my leftist mutuals because I'm more for debate than them, and a lot of them would rather just see them get immediately censored. There is an issue, though, which is that, let's say I'm a streamer and I associate with a trans streamer, and then I go to debate a transphobe with a really rabid following. They could possibly go attack that trans streamer. So while on the surface, I totally agree that it's ideal that we confront these ideas head on, provide a counter narrative, and make people doubt the efficiency of the original narrative, there are very harmful consequences we also need to account for when we do this. And I think in terms of protecting people, for a streamer, you need to make a choice. Like, I've decided not to like collaborate with people directly if I can avoid it, because I do debate these sort of people and I don't want to bring that negative attention to them.
Okay.
So can I,
yeah, me, please.
can I just ask? So
Munson, and then Katie. Apparently, you are using the wrong mic, I think. So anyway.
So now that we've like clarified a little bit and walked around like what we mean by our words here for a little bit, I want to ask my question again because it sort of sounds like we're all in agreement as far as I can tell. So let me just check in. If we were talking, can we all agree in the abstract that it would be a good thing and probably wouldn't be a bad thing necessarily to find legislation that just makes companies communicate clearly and specifically, even if privately, to people that can reasonably rely on their income from them to like would that be worthy of legislation and not have a downside necessarily? Can we all agree to that?
Yeah,
at the very least privately.
Fantastic. Okay, so we all agree that Twitch is in the wrong here. We're all in agreement that kind of legislation would maybe be good.
Well.
So can we?
You're
we not in agreement on there?
Do we all agree that Twitch was wrong to ban Destiny?
No.
Twitch was not wrong under our current legal system. All right, sure. Sorry, let me clarify. Twitch was not wrong under our current legal system, but it'd be worthy of legislating in a position to where they are wrong so that it doesn't happen again. Can we all agree? We
I'm
can't
not
agree
even
with
making an is statement. Like, I'm saying that like it's one thing to say that they should have done something, but to say that the entire thing is wrong now is a different statement.
But we would like legislating because that's what I want to get to. That's what I'm trying to separate it from. Because if we can all agree that legislating the position that we've just described is a worthwhile endeavor, then we can move past that and we can get to whether or not this particular ban was problematic.
Yeah.
Can we
We
all
don't
agree
know
with
if
that?
it was problematic because we don't know the reason for it. So
Hey, that's a pretty good.
You know,
yeah. Do you think that maybe that? Well,
we have no way to dig into it to assess that, nor is it our responsibility or place to. That's between Destiny.
Only
and
there was
Twitch.
legislation for it that made it so we could.
Like
what are we gonna
enacting
do?
further appeal processes, for example.
I'm
I think
serious. Sorry,
I do want to point out most of
I'm
these
sorry.
bigger streamers do have attorneys that go and look through these TOS and do try to like
yeah,
counter
and
them and go
Destiny
to
might be
bat.
able to do that. I'm not going to be
YouTube
able
does
to
it
do
all
that.
the time. You know,
Yeah,
like,
but small content creators don't get protected from this. So I think like
Right.
a really
But
simple
I'll
policy
tell-
that could be forced is a better appeal process, right? You get one appeal. If they just kind of flat out reject you, it's over. You don't get anything to be like, hey, was your review process here? Was there biased influencers? Like there's no process for people to kind of have like a third party mediating or anything, because again, we're talking about people's livelihood, right? If it's just banning you from Reddit and you just like have funsies on Reddit, it's a different conversation than when you're banning people who are to some extent working with you, making you money and making money from you, and you have no access of appeal, particularly if you think that the ban is genuinely unjustified and potentially like highly politically motivated or biased.
Okay,
By the
Jason,
way,
Okay, but I'm confused because you said earlier that you wanted to protect people that are making a living off of this, but then you said that like it wouldn't protect smaller streamers, but smaller streamers typically aren't making a living off of this.
But hold
I
on,
said-
but there's-
I said-
How can you?
That's not
They're
quite what I had
independent.
said. To clarify what I had said that in general, more specific language when it comes to certain bannable policies is going to be better for everyone, actually, because it's going to lead to better transparency and it won't harm the small content creators as much, because a lot of small content creators absolutely get bullied off of venues by making bigger content creators mad at them and then getting mass reported. That happens on TikTok, it happens on YouTube. Most content creators that I've talked to have experienced this to some extent, even if it's just led to like temporary bans.
And I just want to point out that Twitch and the Twitch creators could do a better job pointing out, like, hey, if you want to do this, this isn't the sort of thing you should do to supplement your income. You should already be like self-supporting and then do this. And I see Wick, and like that's not to say like I don't respect people who do that or I don't think they should be doing that, but it's just not the right, like you're not going to be protected like an actual worker would. And that's what
Well,
I
you
think we're not
should be.
communicating.
Maybe you should
You
be.
should.
I'm not
Hold on.
okay. I'm not making an odd statement.
Okay.
What the odd statement I'm making is that we should be better at communicating that they're not protected.
What makes you think that we?
I think
haven't?
small streamers are incredibly aware of the fact that they're not protected. I've been wanting to do watch content and I haven't because I'm still not sure if I'm actually allowed to watch him on my
Listen,
stream or
I
not.
think honestly, I think
think-
screaming
I
on
think-
Twitch about it and bringing awareness to these things, generally, if that's just what you're talking about, I think that's great. I don't necessarily see this as the big issue, but I think bringing issue to these, I think bringing eyes to this as an issue and recognizing it as an issue, if we're going to agree on that, I think that's fantastic, because I do think that it is an issue, and I think it's a workers' rights issue in particular, because at the end of the day, if we can all recognize, not that you necessarily disagree with this, that's up to you to decide, but at the end of the day, if we can all recognize that there are going to be people who are going to be using this as a source of income and end up relying on it, then there's no reason why we shouldn't protect them, because that's just ended up, that's what a worker-employee relationship functionally is. And whether it's through something we call contractors or Twitch people or employees or whatever word we want to use or whatever the structure is, we generally find that worthwhile protecting, like people's source of livelihood. Like we all want to benefit from a society where our source of livelihood is.
Yeah, and I'll buttress off of that a little bit too, because it is very equivalent to, say, like an Uber Eats type of situation, or Uber or DoorDash or something like that. We see how much they're looking for protections. And I mean, at one point, I was jokingly talking to another streamer a couple days ago, and I was like, we should just start a fucking streamers union, because I think everybody spends a lot of hours. I mean, I know, like when I stream like 10 hours, at a time sometimes. And it's not like I'm getting rich off that shit, but
Yeah,
like,
If you think the left has a lot of infighting, try having a streamers union. Just saying.
If the base socialist Hasanabe could use his big balls platform to start a workers' union, it would be fucking great. He would finally put his money where his mouth is for once.
It would be very socialist of him.
So
It would be very socialist of him. It would be super.
Very
He would,
socialist.
imagine all the hate watchers he would convert to the socialist revolution movement. It would be amazing. It would be a sweeping socialist tide across the Twitchosphere.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion at this newly
Let's
formed
go.
union. We should give V1 all the time they need to talk because they haven't said very
V1,
much.
please. Do you have thoughts? I want to give you the floor for a moment, please.
I feel like if Hassan would actually do that, that would be pretty damn great for the left, because a lot of his viewers aren't really into politics that much. He's got a lot of kind of normie viewers. They're just there for the entertainment value, I guess, at this point. He does have a very large following. And if he was to do something like a streamers union, I think that would call a lot of attention to like workers' rights issues, especially on Twitch.
Okay. So I guess a question for you all then. So assuming we have the world we're living in today, Twitch hasn't changed its policies and things like that. So um, the Destiny situation is problematic mostly because we don't know exactly why he was banned. So we have to use a bunch of supposition. And there's all sorts of conflicting reports. Well, he did do this, he didn't do this, he did do this, he didn't do this. So when Ninetails talks about how she would like to keep these things private, I understand in a way, but my question, I guess, for Ninetails and the group as a whole is, would that not just lead to more confusing? How can we ensure that policies are being equally enforced if we keep it private? So I guess the question is twofold. One, is equal enforcement something we want? If so, why? And if not, why not? And two, if we are going to keep things private like Twitch currently does, how can we ensure that it is equally enforced? Go ahead.
So first of all, I think keeping things private doesn't mean that I don't want to call them employees, but in this case, streamers who got the notifications, like they can make it public, right? That was the implication that Destiny did receive this, or like this suggesting that it could have happened, that he got some more explicit explanation and he just hadn't released it, right? So there's private as an internal within the company that nobody tells external people of, and there's just like private as in Twitch doesn't like release a public statement about why a streamer was being banned. I also, just throwing out just a few ideas that I just had, you could do, I actually think there is a lot of value into making it public. I don't think that on a platform like Twitch, making it private as in just giving the streamer the notification, like the detailed notification, is reasonable. This is like, how is anyone supposed to learn from that and like potentially change their content when they don't know what happened? That's going to be a problem. And maybe if we still were very worried about privacy, we could do like just this thing where every once in a while Twitch releases all the different reasons why they banned someone in the past few months, and then there are no names to it, but you can see the list. That's just something off the top of my head. I'm sure someone can dismantle it in a second, but there are solutions for that.
I'm sorry to interject, but you just reminded me of something. When I went to get my security clearance in the military, there were websites without names and things that would tell you exactly why everyone was declined their security clearance. It wouldn't give names, but it would give the exact situation and the exact reason. I think that could be applied to Twitch as well. You won't see the names of the streamers, but you can see the reason why and kind of, the reasoning, the internal reasoning behind it as well. What do we think of that, gang?
I think we've all...
mechanism is based. I think that's awesome because, listen, that gives us the information that we need to be informed streamers and stream within the guidelines of terms of service without exposing X streamer or whatever. Because like I said, there is a part of this where I think there is still like an employee-employer relationship. So, you can't go and tell somebody as an employer, you can't go tell somebody why you can't go and tell everybody why one person was fired. You can't disclose that. It's a violation of your workers' rights laws. You can't tell people why somebody was fired. On the other hand, though, if we have a list that says, okay, well, we have so-and-so and this many people who were banned because of X, Y, and Z, we can say, okay, well, we know there's a lot of bans for this, so we shouldn't do X, Y, and Z. Like you're saying, detailing, the situation, maybe the specific terms that were used, something like that, so that we know we get the information we need, but the person's privacy isn't sacrificed in order to do so. And I think that's good. I have no problem with that.
I have a slight issue with the way we've been framing like the employee-employer thing. And maybe that's just because I'm more ignorant of this and I don't understand why we're framing it like that. I'm less concerned about people making their living off of Twitch. I think Twitch and YouTube and other platforms like that, or just companies in general that are making money off of someone's labor, whatever it is, do have some obligations to it. I'm not worried about how much money you're making out of Twitch. When Twitch decides, I no longer want to let you be on my platform, even though I'm making money off of you. When Twitch says you are no longer going to be making money for me, I think you're entitled to know why, since Twitch is the kind of platform that basically advertises itself on partially the fact that you could do that. So if you're going to be denied that, I just think that like when we're framing it as a employee employer, and then we're equivocating it to, you would never tell other employees where somebody else was fired. And it's like, it's not a direct equivalency. So you don't have to see it as a one-to-one to an actual company.
Just to be clear, I'm pretty sure there are actual labor laws to prevent the exploitation of workers that allow them to share with each other why they were fired. I think that's really
they important. They can share with each other, but the company can't share that, and that's more what I was getting at.
Exactly. Yeah.
So Erudite, then Ninetails, if you wanted, and then we'll go from there. Please.
Yeah. I think there's a tricky thing, particularly with the Destiny ban, because it, like, the transparency issue, I think, is one of the simple policy issues that we can point to. But it also still leaves me with the question of essentially like mobilizing angry masses to mass report anyone, right? I think that this happens on a lot of channels, and it leaves serious concern for me, particularly for small content creators. And the problem is that it actually incentivizes this behavior, right? Where people begin to like basically be proud of themselves for getting people banned under like kind of vague terminology and vague reasons because of like mass reporting and having just like a really active community. And while it's super cool, great that you have a really active community, I don't know if Twitch wants to be like encouraging and like facilitating essentially active like going out and like hunting for other creators and like going out of your way to like mass report, not just with bots, but like with your actual viewers as well. I just think it's a really, really toxic behavior that is absolutely being reinforced right now with the way that like, I'm not sure precisely what the moderation system is within Twitch specifically, but it seems that it responds like many other systems to this mass report issue. And it's a really big problem for me.
I'm willing to disagree.
I want to touch on that a little bit because I have to admit, because we're talking about keffels. Let's just be honest here. Like that's what we're fucking talking about. And I was kind of like okay with it at first, and then the more I saw her like egging on ratioing people, I was like, this something just I'm not jiving with this. There's something that seems more.
So there's something beyond simple capitalism.
I wasn't feeling it. Like at first I was like, okay, maybe she has reason for this with Destiny, whatever. Fine, so be it. Sometimes that shit happens, and there's drama on Twitch. Shit happens. But then when I saw the repeated efforts, like to try to see who else she could ratio, and it just kept going and going, I was like, I don't know if that's really encouraging a very positive like community. That starts
Jason,
to breed
can I ask you a
toxicity.
question? When you say ratioing, what do you mean?
Ratioing like
ratio banning.
Like yeah,
and that's why I was going to say ratio banning like actually goes kind of beyond, and this is to your point, the whole problem with ratio banning in particular, mass reporting, it goes beyond capitalism. That's the whole point. It allows a vocal minority, a radical minority, on the right or the left, or of any kind of extreme severity that we a lot of the time don't really like so much, right? Nazis is a great, just, a random example. White nationalists, I don't know. There's a lot of those seem to be on the platform. We don't want to allow radical vocal minorities to control what we put on the platform because A, it can create all sorts of problems in terms of the way we allow positions we don't agree with to weaponize the platform against us. B, it allows basically just decreases the utility of discourse on the platform in general by allowing a vocal minority to control it. And C, if you really care about any group or issue that Twitch is trying to protect with these regulations, you're actually probably hurting those groups or those advocacy groups or those positions by having these unfair standards, because generally speaking, when it comes to unjust standards that are applied unjustly, there is like almost nothing else that people respond to so fucking negatively and that will hurt your movement so damn bad.
Okay, Ninetails, then Katie.
Okay, yeah, so I wanted to point out that with what Erudite was saying, the one thing that actually kind of makes me wish this was publicly spoken about is that Destiny can also weaponize the fact that it's private and lead and be like, well, I'm not going to say why it was or what I did or what Twitch told me directly, and then leave like leave it up to like people believing that he was hate brigaded. Now, to be clear, I don't think he was hate brigaded. I think that the actions Twitch took was done by a human, and it was done after affirming that there was something worth doing that for. Because, like I said, Twitch would only indefinitely do this if they feel like that person took something like harassment to a very far level. So, I'm not inclined to believe that this is brigading this time. But yeah, in general, it seems to me that like a lot of people do stuff like this and then they're like, oh, I was hate brigaded without there being like a whole lot of evidence that like either someone said to do that or that it led to that. This is, and I'm just gonna, and regarding what Professor Meat said, I don't know why you're focusing on vocal minorities specifically, because vocal majorities can also cause the exact same issues.
Right, but so I'm not saying that vocal majorities can't cause the exact same issues. What I'm saying is that it is a problem that we are allowing vocal minorities to weaponize against us. That like the fact that we're equating a minority with a majority, we're giving them the same kind of power, and this, generally speaking, the way these things play out is the extreme radical minorities are the most vocal. Sorry,
and there's a distinction we really have to make. Destiny is over and above careful about moderating his community for hate brigades. An issue that I'm having is in our whole conversation, we're talking about ratioing, which in my understanding isn't the same thing as mass reporting. Ratioing is just on Twitter and getting the most likes. I actually think ratioing is a pretty effective strategy of basically being like, you know, if some like transphobe posts a bigoted thing and then a trans person counters them and gets way more likes, like it kind of makes the original poster look silly. So I'm not opposed to ratioing. I'm opposed to mass reporting and basically leading decisions just basically based on, we agree with our parasocial relationship lord and we're just going to kind of do what they say. The issue is that there is no evidence of Destiny actively trying to incentivize and motivate his people. In fact, everywhere I've looked extensively at this point, I've talked to multiple moderators, and they are so over the top aggressive about making sure that no one is talking about mass reporting anything, even to Twitch support. They go above and beyond to ban people, to moderate this. And then I see people like Kafels actually encouraging and motivating their people to go to these people, report them. They make slanderous comments. They call people rapists. They say pretty extreme things. And like this behavior is all getting motivated, and it's super toxic. And to be honest, like now we're starting to see like Nazis and stuff getting engaged in this behavior. And it's like, it's incentivizing a really toxic behavior that I don't care what side you're on, we want to get on top of, because it's not going to end well.
Well, if we don't want Nazis getting involved with this, we should tell Destiny not to associate with Lord Southern. I will say though that like, as much
I think
as
that's
let her finish. Just real quick, let her finish. Then we got Katie. Katie wants in, so let Ninetails finish. Then we go to Katie, and then we'll open the floor. Go ahead.
I don't spend time in Destiny's community, so I could just be throwing shots in the dark, but I still think it's amazing that after everything DGG has done to get rid of these hate brigaders, his community still does it like in knee-jerk reactions the moment he gets contradicted and speaks ill of somebody for it.
No. So people actively go out of the way to disagree with individuals, but hate brigading is a totally different thing. For example, I have been hate brigaded, where I had a number of people during my hippie debate come in and just call me a Nazi over and over. Okay, that's very different than, for example,
I meant
people
to
coming
use mass reporting. So that's
okay. So when I'm maybe we should just all agree, and I don't care what definitions. I just want to have consistent definitions for our thing. When we're talking about hate brigading, are we talking about when people on their chat encourage their chatters to go to other streamers and say really shitty things? That's what I understand brigading.
That's probably what it is. I'm just a moron.
No, that's okay. I just want to agree on terms. It doesn't, you're good. And then mass reporting is what I think you and I are talking about, Ninetails, correct?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Sorry, Katie, go ahead.
Yeah. So, first of all, Caples, she did say something about like him being a rapist, and then she immediately got the information that it wasn't true and she retracted it. I don't know if you've seen that clip, but so she said it and then she corrected herself. So there's that, if we're going to bring that up. I'm not well versed enough in this, but I don't think Twitch doesn't know who Destiny is. So if I'm fine talking about like mass reporting, but if we're going to pretend like Twitch got very convinced that Destiny was a bad guy because he got mass reported, I don't. Maybe I'm misunderstanding what people are saying, but that is like ludicrous.
So
Okay.
if we're going to try to, if we're going to
100%
talk
Just real
about,
quick, let Jason go, then Professor B. Go
okay.
ahead.
I 100% agree. They know who Destiny is. They make a shit ton of money off Destiny. If they're making
I think it's a
decision to
valid
pull that
argument to make,
trigger,
not about Destiny though.
just if they're gonna pull that trigger, they know damn well what they're doing. They had to have had more justification than just like hate reporting. There is no way that they're gonna lose one of their biggest cash cows.
Can I
you
just
know,
quickly?
Like that.
Oh, can I?
Yeah.
Because I can clarify this real quick. Just to be clear, if we are going to talk about why Destiny was banned, it doesn't really matter necessarily as much why he was initially banned and whether or not that was due to brigading. I think that the evidence for that is always really indirect. I think that the best evidence we could hope for, as inconclusive as it is people like Keffels actively saying things like that they're going to do it and saying that they did it. But even that doesn't prove it, to everyone's point. It doesn't necessarily prove it. We could talk about that. But the thing is that at the end of the day, his appeal was denied. So Twitch does know what they're doing, regardless of whether or not it was mass reporting. They made, and the people in charge of these things made an intentional determination. And we can talk about the reasons why, because there's not a single one that's not either.
Okay, so I just want to, just real quick, I want to get V1 in because he hasn't had a lot of time. So V1, go ahead.
I think it's pretty obvious that Twitch does obviously know what they're doing when it came to banning Destiny on this. There has been multiple cases where he has broken TOS recently. People don't even know what he's being banned for in the first place because there's so many things that it could be. One example, like him saying the N-word on Twitter, has recently been an issue with Twitch TOS. So I think that could obviously be one of the issues that got him banned. They are pretty
have you seen the email?
Sensitive about slurs. So
yeah, I'll post it right now. It was almost certainly not that.
Yeah, it was pretty clear about VOD specifically, TOS hate speech. I think hate speech specifically violation.
Okay.
Hateful content was
Hateful content, thank you.
Hateful content.
Can I complete my argument, Wick?
Yes, you may. Go ahead.
Thank you. So that was very quickly about like, it's fine if you want to talk about like mass banning, but like not in the context of Destiny. I think that's silly. Second of all, again, I can see the critique being like that Twitch and YouTube and these platforms have like an issue where they maybe like take mass banning into account. But as Professor Mead said, like if there's an appeal process and there's a person looking at it. So it's like we can talk about Kipples if we want, but that's not like an argument against Twitch. That's now about like cancel culture again and whatever people think being toxic online is. So it's quite the derail as far as I'm concerned.
Can I ask you a question then, Katie, in that case? Do you not think
No.
that Twitch... No, I can't. Well, I will anyway because I'm the moderator and this is my show, gang. So I guess my question to that is, do you not think that Twitch has incentives if enough people, no matter how much money Destiny is making, if they feel in their calculus that they would lose more money keeping him on. It would drive away advertisers. It would drive away other content creators for whatever reason. Then in that case, Destiny, because of the language is so vague, Destiny didn't have to do anything wrong or anything specifically against TOS. One of the problems I personally have with this ban is, again, we don't know. And so Twitch could have simply said, well, in their internal discussion, well, he's not doing anything wrong, but he's fucking annoying. Let's get rid of him. And there was nothing, like, there was no way to know if that's the case. There's no way to know, and that's a problem for me. But anyway, please go.
I think people on Twitch break TOS all the time, and Twitch is basically very inconsistent and sometimes very not hands-on, and at some point it just decides it's going to be hands-on, which is why I started this panel by saying if we care about this at all, we should push for regulating it because they don't give a fuck. So I don't think that, as I believe V1, that Destiny did a lot of TOS violations. I'm sure I did and everyone else here did too. It's pretty vague, so I'm sure some guy on Twitch might have an issue with something each of us has said on stream at least once, and we don't get banned for it. I agree.
I'm perfect. I'm
Oh,
perfect.
okay, Jason is perfect. I take
streamed one
everything I
time
said back.
and I broke
Jason,
it.
don't ban me.
The fact that and this may not to necessarily disagree with you, Katie. This may actually be to your point. That I'll leave that determination to you. But the thing is, the part of the problem of this is that there's part of the problem is that streamers all over the place, particularly within the politics sphere, technically break terms of service all the time, but they're forgiven constantly.
Amaranth does it every month. Like literally every month, Amaranth breaks TOS, gets banned, gets caught up on work, comes back. I mean, ASMR streamers break TOS all the damn time. Yeah.
And if you actually care about any cause, position, advocacy, platform, or anything, then you need to care about consistent standards being applied to it, because if there are inconsistent standards being applied against one voice and in favor of yours, then you are actually hurting your cause. Like this is shown time and time again.
I just very quickly want to finish my point. So there's that. There's another issue here that, so Wick, to your question. It's possible that Destiny did nothing wrong. It's possible that he did a lot of stuff that were wrong and he was excused, and at some point Twitch did their calculation for the month and they're like, Destiny is officially a red line for us now. He's gone. Should they be allowed to do that? Some people say that private businesses have the right to do whatever they want. So I guess technically, the way the world is now, they're absolutely allowed to do that. Is that nice for Destiny? Absolutely not. It wouldn't be nice for anyone. But another issue that I want to bring up earlier, and kind of relates to what Jason said, Twitch and YouTube are kind of monopolies. There aren't many other successful platforms. So like when Twitch chooses to do this, and when Twitch has this power, same with YouTube, it's like you can say, well, just pick, this is the TOS and you just gotta fly with it or go somewhere else. You can go somewhere else, but you're not gonna have the same success, right? So we can't just ignore the fact that these companies currently exist. They have a huge part of the market. Discord as well, in terms of like this type of applications that we're using right now, Discord to stream, to like do this conference call. So it's kind of an issue when you have these big monopolies and they're allowed to do whatever they want, Facebook, all that crap. And we're saying, well, they're a private company, they're allowed to do whatever they want. If you don't like it, go somewhere else. It's like, we're not all Donald Trump. We can't just go somewhere else, and somewhere else does not give you the same benefits. So I do think it's reasonable to ask, no, I don't think we should ask those monopolies to do something. I think people should push for regulation, because those big companies have no incentive to do anything that doesn't promote their bottom line.
Okay, Ninetails, you've unmuted. I assume that means you want to talk, and then, yeah, we'll go from there.
Okay, I just want to make sure, first of all, that V1 hasn't been waiting, because I think their hand was raised. I don't remember them.
I'm good.
Okay, good. Just making sure.
I had a little thing to say there, but it was addressed. So.
Okay, so yeah, I'm just gonna. I don't know. I can't entertain the idea that Twitch got rid of Destiny because they were annoyed by him. I'm sorry. He provides them way too much revenue. He brings in like viewers per day. They're not just gonna like be up and like, you know what, we just don't like this guy. And I get when people say that Twitch doesn't have very consistent standards, and for smaller streamers they probably would act like really crappy towards them if they didn't like them. But with such a big content creator who does so much for that platform, if anything, it makes more sense to me that they were probably reluctant to get rid of them.
So there's two reasons why they could have gotten rid of them outside of terms of service. There's a financial incentive and a political incentive. And I can get to the political incentive, which would be the Destiny's annoying kind of thing. It would be more of a political incentive. Most likely it'd be more of a political incentive. But the financial incentive...
Just
go
clarify
ahead.
one thing that we keep getting wrong. When we're talking about politics Twitch, just to be clear, it's less than 12% of Twitch's revenue. The reality is that overall, Twitch doesn't care that much about the politics streaming, because even Hassan, our biggest guy, doesn't contribute probably more than, I don't know, probably max 4% of their politics specific revenue. So I think it's just, we've said this point a lot and it's just not super true.
And the reason why it's actually Twitch can still have a financial incentive despite the fact that Destiny is so much smaller than Hassan is because is because they run into a problem where it's a problem of the least common denominator, because when all of this advertising is in this massive pool and they don't have the infrastructure and the machine and the the AI to regulate these things that Google and YouTube already basically have, because YouTube is owned by Google, if anyone doesn't know, from having established social media platforms already, they have to do this advertising pool that basically appeals to the lowest common denominator, and advertisers are disincentivized from joining that pool when they're in a position where their ads may be distributed to one of the many, or even Destiny streamers that advocate for these sorts of things. However, the thing is that what's weird about that is that they're not going around purging all these problematic people. There's white nationalists all over the platform. So why the hell was Destiny banned? And I think that's more interesting, because it suggests to me that it was more of a political incentive. And if you actually care about the political incentives that they might have banned him around, they're actually hurting their fucking cause by banning them. Because on top
do you
of that,
seriously think it's a political thing? I was going to ask you.
Unquestionably a political thing. Destiny does not bring in that money.
My God.
Most of host donations come from external sources. He's actually making more money from YouTube than he was from just Twitch, and he's unpartnered, so he doesn't even get premium ads. So the idea that it's just monetarily beneficial for them is just it's not weighted there.
So when people go to
his page, so if it's a political thing, we mean that someone is just annoyed.
Just time out. Let Erudite finish her point, then we'll let Katie respond, and then Ninetails. Cool. Go ahead, finish your point, Erudite, please.
I think you guys heard me, so I'm willing to just toss it to Katie.
So when we say political point, we mean some people on Twitch just unironically, politically or otherwise, don't like Destiny very much.
I think specifically in this case, if it is true that he was banned specifically for the trans athletes debate, then it's the case that they think essentially that his comments were politically harmful to a certain group, and they wanted to ban the language that he used there and the ideas that he was contending with.
Well,
the issues that we don't fucking know because they weren't transparent. So maybe it's some other random shit.
GSU Gambit
so
made
you
the
don't
same
mean
arguments
that
and
they
did
don't
that,
like
and
him.
so I don't think
maybe
that's
we
it.
can we just give two answers then, because we're getting talking around this. It's so dumb. It's either Erudite's entire point is that sure, we can divide it into two categories if we want. Either it's an explicitly political reason, or for political reasons or otherwise, they just don't like Destiny. We can divide that into two broad categories if we want.
I think
it's probably not
those
useful to speculate. Hold on, let me finish. It's probably not useful to speculate that they just generally don't like them. Maybe it's the case, if we want to be technically true. That's why I say it's probably a more reasonable guess that it was for some kind of political motivation, even if it's just because they're trying to be good advocates for the left in their own sort of twisted,
so we can both
way.
agree. So we can both agree that there's a difference between somebody doesn't like Destiny on Twitch and someone is trying to be a political advocate for whatever cause, and you just think that they're hurting their cause, basically.
I think it must be one of the two in Twitch's case, because those are the only things left that could conceivably make any sense. But it's probably way more useful and more likely that it's some kind of political cause. Yes.
Could I maybe ask that we move away from the speculation and more into maybe how we as consumers of Twitch feel about the ban specifically of Destiny, just because then we don't have to speculate, because we've already talked about there's this big wall of we don't fucking know because there's this transparency issue. And I actually think everyone's probably agreed of being yeah, it would be better if there was just more transparency about this shit. And then we wouldn't have to speculate. And I think we're just going to run in circles if we speculate.
I do want to take issue with you saying that he doesn't make them a lot of money, though. People, when they go to his page, view an ad. It's that simple. So, with thousands of
people
viewers,
view ads on my channel.
Let her finish, and then you can respond.
When with that many people viewing ads and/or subscribing, so that way they don't have to see ads, there's clearly a substantial amount of profit coming in from Destiny's channel.
Not
it's
when you compare
like
him to
0.5%.
Pokimane or Ms. Kiff or somebody who's ranking
not
37,000 views.
But I'm not interested in doing comparisons, though. I'm saying that he's not small fry.
I'm not trying to say he's small fry. I'm trying to say overall the entire political streaming sphere is small fry comparative to full Twitch revenue. So to speculate about revenue, a big issue when it comes to ads. I was actually there. Devin Nash did for all of you guys wondering about money and stuff. Devin Nash did a really good video covering this because he's worked behind the scenes for a lot of these major techs about how Twitch does their ad revenue, what the connection is between their ad services branch and their banning branch and stuff like that. It was really good, and it made it pretty clear that to say that it's purely a financially motivated ban is a stretch based on some of the mechanics that they're using for advertising and stuff like that.
Okay, but we can't sit here and say it's just because they don't like Destiny. I think
We
that's,
can't.
That's
So
foolish.
all right. So
That's-
then we
that's
can move past
only
the
fucking
speculation and we can
ridiculous.
talk about our particular experiences consuming this content on Twitch. Then, like Kyla said, or not. Sorry, I said sorry. Can we? I feel like we keep all
I'm
giving
just
reasons
kidding.
why we agree with that, but we don't actually move past it. Can we move past that? Can we all agree to move past it?
I don't
Just like
know.
when
Can
earlier I
you
was trying to
all
say
move
that we all
past
agree.
that?
Quick
Because
point.
we all seem to agree about the legislative idea in the abstract, so I would like to move past that. We keep agreeing and then circling back to the position. Can we?
Okay, Katie,
Can we move past
please.
now?
It's just a very quick point, and then I'm even willing to like completely backtrack it. I just need to say, I think that if we're going to say we did the hypothetical of like the trans people in sport like being an issue, and then like someone in Twitch wanting to be a good advocate for trans people, I just personally find that to be a bit silly. The amount of rampant transphobia that is on Twitch constantly and is not being reinforced. Like Prime should have been hit so many times with the amount of crap that goes on there. It's like, come the fuck on. No one is some white and knight in what? No one is a knight thingy on a horse thingy protecting trans people. Okay.
Knight in shining armor.
Fuck, dude. His English is so hard.
It's okay. It's okay. I understand.
What
it's
you're
my
saying
native
Can I
is-
language.
actually ask?
So what you're saying is if Twitch
Just-
decided to try to be that person and started fucking it up, that might be a problem.
Okay, so Ninetails, and then Professor Meat if you want. So
Oh, I said my
Yeah,
shit.
I don't know how much I need to get into this or how deep I want to go, but I will point out that even if it's not applied uniformly, and that's certainly an issue, I'm not going to try to say that they've been doing that right. Advocating for discrimination in any form is against Twitch TOS. I think there should be exceptions, like massive exceptions for panels and debates, though. So I'm not saying that any of it was justified, just that it's something to be aware of, and that when you do advocate for keeping trans people out of sports, you are fundamentally advocating for that.
Oh, is this going to become a
I know
sports
you don't want to
panel
get
then?
into
Is
it,
this-
so I won't. I would just say, like, I don't know if you've watched his actual take on it, but and you don't have to. Like, you might not even give a fuck. But if we're going to talk about it publicly, I would say that's a pretty ungenerous straw man that I think is probably just cultivated from like what I've seen a lot of like Twitter headlines and stuff. And if you haven't seen it, I think it's understandable to come to that conclusion. But if you listen to him actually talk about it, that's not at all what he's talking about.
No,
But
I know,
I was
also-
gonna say,
I
you
know.
can't use
Hey,
that
hey,
as
hey,
justification
one at
for
a
your
time.
argument if
One
you're
at
not
a
willing to
time.
get into it.
Let Ninetails respond, and then Professor Meat, and whoever else. Go ahead.
So I totally agree. He probably wasn't directly advocating for that, like most people are. But if we acknowledge what happens if Destiny wins the argument, it will be trans people being kept out of the sports that or the leagues that they identify with. Just pointing that out. So maybe that's not his end goal. Maybe it's being nuanced in this when you kind of fundamentally don't have to misunderstand sports science in order to have that position. But either way, like what I will point out, just because I've had this discussion a million times and nobody seems to get this, is that participation in sports is a fundamental human right. So trans people should have that by default unless we can find substantial reason not to do it.
So we're getting into it.
I feel obligated at this point to point that out. But other than that, we don't have to have that discussion.
All right, no, hold on. I just want to point out, because can we, like, for the record of the court, can we redact the statements? Because it is not fair. I'm sorry, it is not fair to go on this diatribe.
Yo,
and
Professor Meat,
justify-
I'm
Hold on,
not.
hold on.
I can't redact shit.
No,
so
it's
be
fine. It's
careful what
fine.
you
It's a
say. Go
metaphor.
ahead.
It's a metaphor.
Okay.
It's a metaphor. It is totally not fair in terms of like discourse, argument, debate, like ethics. To like, you cannot weaponize. You cannot use as a justification for your argument a series of arguments about a topic and then say, but we can't get into the topic. Because the only way for me to then argue back against the diatribe that you just went on is to get into the topic. So let's get into it. Let's get into
I didn't
it. No,
say
you
not
did.
to
You
get
did. You
into
said
it. No, listen, I did not say
Okay.
not to get into it.
Okay,
I
well, let's
said
get into
I
it.
prefer not to because it's gonna
Okay.
get messy. Okay, it's gonna get fucking.
All right, so then maybe
Right.
you shouldn't
I-
specifically force me in a position where I'm going to need to get into it to disagree
You're
with
not
you.
I
gonna
think
do
what's-
anything. Calm the fuck down.
I think what's maybe more helpful
Okay.
in this case is like getting into specifically, like rather than getting into a trans athlete debate, which I think everyone's kind of being like, not really what the purpose of this topic is to getting
Right.
into like, is what Destiny said actually what's being claimed about him? Is that fair? And then B is that if that is the case that he's doing it or not, is the resulting ban something that we're comfortable with? I think that that's maybe more interesting rather than us getting into the trans athlete debate.
And we can do all of that once I'm done making the point I was going to make, which is addressing actually what you said before that, Erudite. I think that while it is true that it's really hard to capture whatever it is Destiny says about most topics with the amount of nuance required, because, you know, when people preface other people's arguments, that happens. Destiny does have a tendency in some of the debates that he goes into and some of the concepts that he engages in to engage in very inflammatory language, or to use hyperboles that are very eye-catching on purpose, or to trigger a bunch of like feminist SJWs about stealthing, for example, you know?
Yeah, on Twitter, he totally does that. The issue is that this deletion was actually about a VOD where he was being 9v1'd and very nuanced about his position.
Yes, a VOD that he was 9v1 that he joined because he knows he can take all of those 9 people very easily because he's Destiny. And the thing is that when people, and this is kind of like, I don't know if it's still Manning, her argument, but it's kind of how I feel. When people like Destiny and Doobie, for example, choose to take a position that I don't know if they really believe in, or they just feel like doing it for the blood sports and just like seeing how it goes to get dogpiled and still do better than a bunch of amateurs that don't debate a lot. There are consequences to that.
1v9 because GSU Gambit was fucking like standing for him the whole fucking time.
That
like,
was the title of his video, so he was 9v1'd apparently.
9v1 my ass. I was on that fucking panel. Give me a fucking break. I rage quit because he's fucking dumb.
But we can all agree he totally could have if he wanted to, right?
I don't care. I don't care what he titled his show. I just do not care what he titled his show. Let's continue.
The point is that when Destiny chooses to engage in some sort of rhetoric and then complain that everyone are misrepresenting his very nuanced take or not understanding his nuanced take, that's going to happen if you're not going to make a lot of effort to clearly explain what you actually want. It's me, after we sat down for 2 hours, I managed to get where you want, and apparently we were saying the same thing the entire time, just completely differently because people speak differently. So while it is possible to, yeah, I'll just stop there.
Okay.
Yeah, and I do want to point out that just kind of piggybacking off the Doobie thing, like, just because you've had an ingenuine take doesn't mean you shouldn't receive the consequences for making those arguments.
It means you shouldn't receive. You can receive criticism.
Let me ask the question.
I think that this is a.
Okay. Just real quick. Just let me ask the question, then I'll let Erudite then me. If you want to address my question, you may. If you don't, that's okay. It's just a very quick question. Do we think that what do we think the consequences should be for having a really shitty take?
I think that you should get socially shamed. I think you should get called out on Twitter, and I think a bunch of other people should jump on that opportunity to debate bro the fuck out of them and make them look stupid, which is what, by the way, Destiny does all the time, and it's how he established the online left. Just by the way.
Yeah, because Destiny is a superior debate because it's challenging.
He lifted at debate. I don't know what to tell you. He's rationally consistent.
Yes, he is.
So what you're telling me is that Destiny is
time out.
So what
time out.
That's all it cares about. He cares about clicks and making money.
Did you finish your point, Erudite?
No.
Okay, Erudite, please finish your point. And then Jason may respond, and Katie may and anyone. Yes, Katie, Jason, Katie, Professor Meat, and V1 if he wants it, please.
Sure. All I'm trying to say is that this idea of being like, oh well, he's just such a great debate bro, and all this stuff. Yeah, he is. That's why he established just chatting didn't exist before Destiny was on this platform. He and a couple others spearheaded the existence of this. He actually made the online left in the Twitch sphere because what he would do is he would hang out with a bunch of random gamer bros who were the most popular people in this platform. He would find a couple of their takes that were really like conservative and pretty harmful, like about immigration or something like that, and he'd casually bring it up and then push them on their ideas and be like, oh wow, that's a really bad idea and really harmful to this group. And then he would move a whole bunch of people in this sphere being like, oh wow, I guess I'd never thought of that. I know so many people who have been moved left because of Destiny's rhetoric, and they've used it to debate. And he's done this to make space for trans people, by the way, as well. Actively, he's worked very hard on it. And I know plenty of trans people who advocate consistently that they value him in the space, and that this uncharitable representation that led him to potentially being banned is honestly a travesty for Twitch and for the online political sphere in general.
So
Okay,
I'm really
so
glad
just
Destiny.
Just real quick, this is an order of operations we're gonna go in, because a lot of you want in. So we're gonna go Jason, Katie, Meat, Ninetails. Go.
Destiny is a center-left
V1,
lib
V1.
who is courting the right, who hangs out and co-ops people like Lauren Southern, who is wildly fucking like a white supremacist outwardly. He apologizes for them. He fucking capes for them. He goes around wearing MAGA hats, and while they wear BLM shirts and they joke around jovially, taking away from the fact that she's a horrible fucking degenerate person that has no place on any fucking platform as far as I'm concerned. Destiny fucking shits all over people to the left of him, even slightly, as idealistic. What the fuck is he doing for the left? He's doing a lot for the fucking status quo. He sure as fuck fits the status quo. I don't think he does shit for the left. I personally don't give a fuck if he's banned or not. I think the dude's bona fide a piece of shit. When you're sitting there telling people, as I saw on his stream, telling people not to fucking disclose their STD statuses with potential sex partners because it just doesn't fucking matter, tells me all I need to know about Destiny. He's morally fucking bankrupt. His position moves based off of what's going to get him the most clicks, and he's a provocateur. That's all he fucking cares about. That's all he fucking cares about. It's a money game for him. I don't think he gives a
That
shit
is
about
so
any of his
untrue.
stances.
He has sacrificed large swaths of
How can you
audience
even say that?
constantly for doing what he thinks is right. He has platformed trans politicians regularly, just for free, by the way. He's the reason why half of the big streamers that we love on the left even fucking exist. Honestly, like
I'm
you're
free
being so.
Destiny.
I'm Destiny just
TYT.
cares about money
I'm sorry,
is such
I'm
a
YouTube
dishonest
TYT.
representation.
Fuck Twitch. I'm
is it my
YouTube
turn yet?
TYT, baby. So like, I come
is
from a
fucking
long
not you
line,
wait your turn.
way
Just don't think you
further
know the
back
history.
of creators who were doing it way before Destiny, who were blasting the
Hold on,
platform with
okay.
people on the left. So I don't fucking what the fuck ever.
All right.
Keep caping.
We're gonna let
Keep
Katie
caping.
respond, or Erudite, since
Okay.
Erudite was addressed, she may respond, but then Katie.
Have you watched Destiny
and
on
me.
Twitch for a while? Have you watched him for like 2 years, 3 years, 4 years? Have you even bothered looking back?
He used to be pretty decent. He's not so much anymore. The past year he's gone
Do
to
you
shit.
spend any time on the Twitchosphere at all?
No, I stream on the Twitchosphere. I'm fucking
Right.
on here frequently.
Recently?
I don't know. You know, I was on the Prime panel that Destiny was on. I'd say pretty damn recently. Like the one
Okay,
that you guys
So
keep
my
citing,
concern
I was
is
on.
how you're
that panel.
characterizing him shows me that you don't know anything about the history of Twitch politics, or Destiny, and I'm really uncomfortable with you making claims about how he's just focused on money and he's just like this limp-wristed liberal who's just here for views. It is so untrue because he has sacrificed his viewers over and over again and bent
Really?
over backwards for people who have
Really?
stabbed him in the back consistently. And it's shitty that people keep on saying the shit. Look, Destiny's done a lot of shit I disagree with too. I don't even like, I hate his tweets half the time. But to act like he's just like this evil villain who like stomps around and is mean to everyone is so bad faith and dishonest. And it's insane to me that people would be willing to say that in this sphere when like we have to fucking thank the guy that this sphere even exists.
Okay, Katie.
He literally invented the song.
No.
Whatever.
Katie.
I got it out there.
Katie.
He
And
invented
then me.
Hassan. TYT invented Hassan. What the fuck are you
Yeah,
talking
you're
about?
talking
You
about-
guys-
This is exactly what we're talking
Before you
about.
went to Twitch. What the
You
fuck
You
don't
are
just
play
make
doing?
yourself look like an
That
idiot
doesn't
to
know
every single
anything.
person in the
He
Twitch
doesn't
chat.
know
Every single
anything.
person that
Do you,
sees you
who do you
would
think
say that.
invented
Like,
Vosh? Who
He's
do you think
Cenk
invented
User's
Vosh?
nephew. He's Cenk User's
no,
nephew.
the people invented Vosh by elevating him with their socialist rhetoric. They're like, what the fuck? Yeah, okay. Anyway, so, sorry, go ahead.
Quick pivot away from Hassan.
So anyway, all
I
right.
would
So
love to talk
Hassan
about
is like Hassan is by
a
far the biggest
dumbass
leftist on the
without
platform.
Destiny. He has completely failed.
Can I?
Okay.
Hassan has very specific esoteric information that he
Have a way
got
to help.
because of his nepotistic relationship with his uncle, and then you put him in a debate. And
His
remember
relationship
his
with
debate with Christian Walker? He couldn't even tell people why trans women were fucking women.
I'd like to
Katie.
thank Destiny for making.
Katie.
I
please.
would like to thank Destiny for making the just chatting category happen on Twitch. Destiny has and will and has been doing great things. Twitch, good. Destiny, good. Okay, good.
All
Awesome.
right, so if we're going to,
Shut
so then it sounds like we
No.
have. Oh, did you have more?
No.
Did you? Oh, I'm sorry.
I
thought
have
you were
more.
done.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Katie,
Go ahead.
finish and then Meat. Once Katie is finished, Meat, you may go. And then we'll go to Ninetails, and then we'll go to V1. And then we'll see how crazy it gets. Please, go ahead, Katie.
I'm actually kind of frustrated because Erudite said stuff a long time ago that I wanted to respond to, and I don't even remember what it was anymore. So that's a problem. Yeah. I'm sure Destiny has done great things. I think what was Jason's trying to say that, like, in the same way that you can find a lot of trans people Erudite who would say that it's a travesty that he got banned, you can find a lot of leftist people who were de-radicalized by Destiny and would say that they've stopped watching him for the last year or two because he has deteriorated in his level of content. He's become a lot more reactionary, as Vosh would say, or just more more right-leaning, as some other people would say. I don't think it's controversial to say that he's a lib. I don't care if he does it for money. I don't think that he does. When I told him I think he cares about human beings, he said that's not true, so I'm going to believe him on that. I don't know. I think he genuinely wants to help with some stuff, but I also know that he has his own style, and that's fine, whatever. I thank Destiny very much for what he did. If we're talking about the left, he's not very helpful to the left for a very long time. He's in an anti-lefty arc right now. So while I am aware of the history, currently in the reality that we live in, Destiny has not been very helpful to the online left. Do I think that matters to any extent? And like the banning of his? No, I don't think people should be banned because they're not helpful to the left. Now, Meat, I get that you think Destiny still has value to the online left and to progressive causes. And I might, when I said, you know what, I'll walk back. I'm not saying that he doesn't have any value. I think in the same way that we can thank him very much for de-radicalizing a lot of people, I think he's now radicalizing a lot of people. That's why I brought up Doobie as well, because Doobie does that too. For him, it's a blood sport, and people are getting convinced by these arguments, and they are moving further to shittier opinions, shittier, bad, harmful opinions. So to answer Wick's question very quickly, when people are giving a shitty take, oh, I remember what I wanted to tell you, Erudite. When I said that Destiny is a great debater, what I meant to say by that was that when you say, well, if Destiny has a shitty take, just go and debate him on that. Just go do that. No, you can't really do that when it's Destiny, because Destiny can take 1v20, okay? He's fucking awesome at what he does. That's the problem. When the person that has a shitty take is really good at what they're doing, they might still win, even though their take is really shitty. So it's not about like the fact that he's just a magician.
Okay.
That's it.
Okay. So,
Meat, and then
Yes, okay.
yeah, go ahead, Meat.
so all right. First off, when we're talking about unless we're just think that Destiny is like the god tier human that is way smarter than all of us, I don't think it's very useful. I think that like, I'm sorry, no, sorry, I'm gonna get lost in my ADH brain. I need to run down my arguments as I have them listed here. First off, a few contradictions that have been made here that are pretty blatant. The idea that we can necessarily say confidently that like this is all just a money game for Destiny is kind of silly when the guy's literally like actively pushing rhetoric and walking the line of getting banned from the platform. It's kind of just like a silly argument to make just for that reason alone. When we're talking specifically when we're talking about that in particular. Second, when we're talking about Destiny being uniquely good at rhetoric while defending positions on the left, I think that's a pretty good argument. You can't really say that and then use that as one of the reasons in your argument for why he's, or you can't recognize that and then also say that like, oh, what is he doing for the left? That's how about that? How about the fact that if you remove the apparently, according to you guys, the giga-brain #1 alpha dog person who can defend any kind of position and defeat all comers, maybe it's worthwhile keeping the only person like that happens to exist on the left, even if center left. Thank God. Maybe it's useful keeping that person around the platform. Number 3. This whole idea of, oh, well, he's on an anti-lefty arc, so that's not useful to the left. Sometimes, when we're talking about radicals, or some of the people on this panel, I'm not going to name names, I think it's really worthwhile for the left to do lefty infighting, just like it might be worthwhile for the right to do righty infighting, because you want to cleave off the cancers, all right? Because they're always going to be there. And lastly, I just want to say, if with this 1v20, like, oh, we have to get rid of Destiny, that's cool. We can all talk, we all think each other's takes are dumb, blah, 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 we're on Twitch, etc. But lastly, I just want to say, this whole 1v20 thing, oh, he can 1v20, so we have to remove him from the platform. Just saying, if your whole thing is that we have to remove the guy who's so logically consistent that he can 1v100 just anybody, maybe you're the secret radical and you haven't realized it yet.
Did you hear me say that?
Worthy of
I didn't say that.
Katie.
Rhetorically consistent.
Hey, I didn't. It's funny. I didn't use your name, so it's sort of weird that you assume I'm talking about you.
He's rhetorically consistent.
What views are inconsistent?
Go
Go ahead, Jason. Tell me. Since you're gonna put up that, like, honestly, like, what's the point? First of all, you're basically with that little image that you're trying to do, being like, look, he's moving right, and anyone who's right wing is bad, which is a really dog shit take to have, by the way.
Okay.
Second of all, what are his inconsistent views? Yes, it is absolutely wrong to just assume that a person's a bad person because they tend to lean conservative. You might not like their fucking ideas, but half of these people are the ones that work at homeless shelters, that are handing out free food.
Wait, you said when somebody moving right is bad. That's not the same as thinking they're a bad person.
Just real quick, time out.
What the fuck is he doing?
Time out.
Like,
time out.
if
time
he's
out.
saying he's
Jason,
left, and
real
you're
quick,
saying he's
real
left,
quick,
and he's
Jason,
helping the left,
and he's
not doing that.
Can you take the image off? I don't know if I can show images of Destiny since he's banned. So I don't know if that's a thing that I can do. So please just remove that for me real quick. Then Ninetails has been wanting in. We're going to let her get a chance to get in this, and then you can continue eating each other's eyeballs. Go ahead.
Oh, I'm going to be eating eyeballs too. Yeah, Destiny being, the original debate bro thing actually doesn't mean that much to me. It means he's an opportunist. He was in the right place at the right time. But I've also seen many other people, and I'm going to brag here, including myself, who can take unlimited sized dogpilings and do fine. If anything, I think the fact that people revere Destiny as being some sort of elite debater, while plenty of smaller debaters put actual time into preparation and get thrown under the bus because he's so big that nobody watches them. Yeah, I think it's actually better that, the amount of people who will be watching somebody for their debate skills will be spread out, because someone like me can benefit from that. Now,
So
that's
get rid of all big creators?
No, just calm down.
Okay.
That's not to say that I want that to happen to everybody. Just that, it's not a bad thing for me. But overall, the one thing I find most interesting about Destiny, aside from the fact that he normalizes really bad, terrible takes, and aside from the fact that he normalizes alt-righters, is the fact that he cannot take the exact form of criticizing that he dishes out. And he hides behind his fans to do that heavy lifting for him when he can't handle it. I'm so sick of it. He's had me on once to talk about something that was pretty milquetoast, but every time I've had an issue with his conduct directly, no, he will never have me on his stream. Why? Because he's an egomaniac who doesn't want to look bad ever. So as much as I agree, he has skills as a debater. And I'm just gonna say
Twitter.
skills,
What do you mean?
and I
Let
agree
her
that
finish.
he's
Let her
not
finish.
bad at it. He's also so incredibly unhumbled by it that I wouldn't expect him to ever admit he was wrong.
Okay, V1. If you don't speak now, you're not going to get a chance probably. So go ahead.
Yeah, well, I do agree that Destiny is an amazing rhetorician. He isn't really that good at defending his actual points outside of just rhetoric. Like, his actual points aren't even that good. He is a liberal. We can't keep saying that he is on the left or started leftist.
Motherfucker, what the fuck?
That's like middling shit. right?
Liberals
That's
are
right
not
in
the
middle.
left. I'm sorry.
Yeah, when I think the
You're
left,
still
I think
muted, but
anyone-
they're
He
still
invented
not.
Twitch politics. He invented. You're literally
can
just showing how
invent
ignorant you are if you
anything.
don't
It doesn't
recognize
matter that
Destiny's
he's
like
not a
invention of this
leftist.
entire
Let's
sphere
let V1
and enabling
finish.
of leftist
Quick,
politics.
quiet,
recognize
both of
that.
you.
Vosh,
Hey,
Demon
that-
Mama,
Still
Destiny's
Time out.
babies.
Time out. Let V1 finish, because he's and then you
All right.
continue. V1, please.
Yeah, I'm done now.
Are you done with your
Who
point?
gives a shit? All right, who gives a shit if he started the space? It doesn't matter. Like, why do we still?
All right, so then we
supporting
don't
him?
have to use it to substantiate our positions, then, right? We don't have to continue over that subject
Hey,
because I'm
V,
not
just
the one that brought
let
it up.
him finish.
Okay.
It really does not matter at all. Like, it doesn't matter. Also, a bit with what's her name? Fuck, my UI is not working. One
Erudite
second.
or Katie? Or me?
Or Ninetails. There's 3 she
I'm
hers
having
here.
yeah, Ninetails. Yeah. One thing you said with like him taking up space, I guess, on the Twitch politics scene, I don't think you can really blame bigger creators existing for you not getting the viewers you want. I think that is kind of a bit of a childish way of looking at that. And
I'm
maybe
not
you should
doing
consider
that.
that
I'm just
maybe your rhetoric isn't actually as good as you think it is when you're talking about that.
no. I could have said it better because what I'm saying is that the wealth of like attention will be redistributed with him being gone. Not that like I'm entitled to it.
Yeah, but
Okay.
I don't think him being gone will even change that at all, really.
Okay, so just a note. Time is winding down. I would love to do this more, but I do have another appointment at 8, so we are going to do. We'll finish the current round of things, and then we'll give closing statements, and everyone will get their outros. I just want to thank you all for coming. I know it's gotten a little heated, but I appreciate you for the most part being very respectful. So thank you. So Kate, but we'll finish up this round of things. So Katie, then Erudite, please.
Yeah, so I want to very quickly make this clear because I know it's hard to believe and it's okay if people don't. I don't know what Destiny is as a person. Okay, I don't know him. He is. I think he's the greatest person alive. It doesn't really matter. I don't care. His character is so irrelevant to me and everything that I'm saying. All I care about is if I agree with what he says or if I don't agree with what he says and how I think he should be treated based on what he's saying. All I know is that ever since I got on this sphere, I haven't heard Destiny say a lot of things that are near to where I would want it to be on the progressive scale. Obviously, I do think that he's definitely become more right-leaning than he was when I first entered the sphere. I have no doubt that he still does good work for the left, but I also know that he's very harmful to it. And I'd be very interested in his response if he thinks that he contributes to the left or if that's even something that he wants to do. Either way, that has nothing to do with him getting banned or shouldn't get banned. Him being a good debater or a good person with rhetoric doesn't mean that he shouldn't be allowed or whatever. Like, there are many people who have shitty takes that come on sometimes, and sometimes Destiny has good takes. Not as often as I would hope that he'd have, especially if I felt like he was more consistent with his views. But I just want people to know that as far as I'm concerned, I don't really think he's an evil mastermind. I don't really care about his personality, and I think people who do, like, they need to stop being so parasocial, because it's not healthy.
Okay, Erudite, me, and then we're going to go to closings. So, Erudite, please.
Okay. Liberals can be on the left. Libertarians may or may not be on the left, but liberals are descriptively on the left. All you need to do is read a textbook about what political spectrum is, and you'll understand that liberals are on the left. They're not as far left as a communist, obviously, but I think that we all know that. Second of all, being critical of the left does not make you a right-winger. It makes you responsible. You should always be critical of your own group. It's why I will go above and beyond as somebody in the mental health field to talk about these serious issues that happen within psychology and with mental health treatment. It is important and it is responsible. I am not saying that Destiny is perfect and he's never done wrong. I disagree with some of his takes. I basically never agree with how he words things on Twitter, ever. But the issue is that I see this like rampant villainizing, slanderous claims. Jason here said a bunch of shit with no evidence about money and all this other shit when he's not even been on the Twitch sphere for long. He probably doesn't watch the YouTube videos of Destiny, so he has no fucking idea. He was on like a panel once with the dude and just made a whole bunch of
I'm on a panel with
unnuanced.
Destiny several fucking times. Excuse you. So go ahead and
Well,
sit back
okay,
and say
you
your
must
piece.
know him complexly.
But you're making a lot of qualifying like statements about me.
Yeah,
that you
I would
don't
like
fucking
evidence
know.
for your claims
So,
against
you know,
Destiny, because if you're
what
gonna
the
make
fuck ever?
slanderous
Describing what you
claims,
said.
you better have good evidence. I'm not gonna come on here and start like making a bunch of claims about any of the other panelists or people that are not here
Say that
unless I have
isn't
substantiated
demonstrably
evidence.
true. What did I say that isn't demonstrably true?
That he's inconsistent, that he's focused on money, a whole bunch of shit. I can't even
He made a
list
whole
them all.
bunch
I
of
didn't write them
qualitative claims
down.
about his characters and
I-
intentions. Like that's pure speculation. Yeah, that's our
Okay,
point.
gang. I'm sorry.
Wait, so I'm
sorry.
next. I'm next. No, it's real quick.
You're gonna
real
get
quick,
a closing
quick.
statement,
I
dude.
can throw no, but I don't want to throw arguments in
That
my
wasn't
closing statement
closing.
because
I'm
that's
done.
rude. You know.
Go ahead. Go ahead then, quick.
I
Real
can
quick.
throw my arguments in my closing statement if you want, if it's okay. You know, I'll throw some jabs in
We're
there.
gonna have to. Patel, like it is. Thank you for the gift subs. You're great. So yeah, let's just go to closing, gang.
Okay.
Yeah, if everyone is yeah,
I'm
think
I'm fine with it.
reached
I just
the
try to keep
point.
my jabs out of my
I
closing statements,
understand.
but I'm
So
happy
we'll
to
go
throw
in
them
the
in if you want.
reverse order, actually, than we did the opening. So actually, Professor Meat, you're up first. Go ahead.
I'm up first. Okay. Well, so I'll just say that if you like want to just not like Destiny or speculate as to the contents of his character, totally fine to do so. If you want to base your fandom around that, that's fine. We can talk about it if you want. But that's the whole reason why it's just fucking stupid to try to make like qualitative, like conclusive statements based on some like weird speculation as to the contents of his heart or something. I totally agree with Katie. I care about like cause and effect. I care about what's actually happening. I care about accurate, descriptive, and prescriptive claims. And one last thing that I want to add on there before I get to my real closing statement is that if we're talking about things that people do for the left, who else has done the canvassing work that Destiny has? Just saying. Now, if we want to get in that bigger conversation, we can. We don't have time to now, but I guess I'll just offer my quick little closing statement to say that, like, a whole bunch of claims have been made here about Destiny that cannot be substantiated. We all basically seem to agree that Twitch is in the wrong here. The only substantiation of why it was good for Destiny to be banned here in this particular case is just literally a whole bunch of speculation and unsubstantiated claims. The most of which just seem to be like, I really don't like Destiny and how good he is at arguing against me. I'm not trying to call anyone out specifically, but that seems to be the main argument.
Okay, tell everyone who you are too, by the way. Shill your shit.
Oh, also, so I never did that, did I? I am Professor_Meat on Twitch. I was so ready to get into the fire and the flame fighting with the arguments. I am the sword and shield of the base and the righteous, all right? Wicked out there in the chat, if you feel underrepresented, all right? If you need champions of truth and light to come defend you, all right? I'm here. Come into my chat. And if you are one of the hordes of the armies of darkness that would dare defy us, come with your armies of cringe zombies into my chat so that we can destroy you. I, like Grandpapa Destiny, love to have people come against me and debate with me because I actually care about truth and the things that I claim to care about. So I'm happy to talk about them anytime.
Thank you. V1, please.
So that was a shit show. I think that whole thing was just a lot of people dick riding Destiny and getting mad about people dick riding Destiny. No productive conclusion was came to, and that was not really that great of a discussion. I'm sorry that I didn't talk too much and I wasn't very active in this. I am more used to like Congress style debates in like my school debate club, for example. So I apologize if I wasn't a little more aggressive, but I made a Twitter today, which I think that's one of my worst decisions in my life, but it's at v2.x. Go follow me. And that's about it. Thanks.
Okay, well, thank you for being here. I do appreciate you. Hopefully you were entertained, if nothing else. So, Ninetails, please.
Okay, I actually had a lot of fun with that. Do wish that some of the more level-headed people would have spoken more, but that's... Yeah, so...
You're cutting out. We can't hear you.
Oh, really? Crap. Is that still going on?
No, continue, please, quickly. Yeah.
Okay, testing. Where's my thing?
You're good. You're good.
Okay, is that better?
Yes.
Okay. So, I'll admit, I don't like Destiny as a person, but that's not where any of my arguments came from on this. My arguments came from either the utilitarian view of it, which was going to be like what I first came in before I read the prompt, and then the what could have he have possibly done. And as far as like the whole other streamers being harassed by his fans thing, I am not convinced by the whole he does a lot. Like, he may, but it's not enough, and he should find something else he could do, because there are plenty of streamers, both who are public about it and private. That means there's a lot more than what we hear about publicly, who have been terribly harassed by his community simply because they kind of owned him one, and then he talks shit about them afterwards. So personally, as much as I'd like to think the best of this and that there's not any like active thing going on, I have a feeling that there's a bit of opportunism and enjoying, the kind of audience he has, despite them being really cringe.
Okay, thank you.
And lastly, please don't assume that other people can't do Destiny's job. He doesn't even do preparation for his debates. Anyways, so I'm Ninetailscosmicfox on Twitch. That is all spelt as words, and Tails is spelt Tails. And on Twitter, I am at M9Scarlet. That's letter M. The number 9 is Scarlet with 2 T's. If you like Destiny, you probably will like me, because I'm a debater. I have cringe takes once in a while, and but unlike Destiny, I actually make sure I know my shit when I go into debates. Except for the one time I went into debate Destiny because I felt like just doing something on the fly, and that ended up screwing me. So, anyways, have a good day.
Well, yeah, thank you for coming. I do appreciate you, especially kind of last minute. So, thank you again. I've appreciated you being on here and supporting your cause. Erudite, if you have anything to say at the end.
No, I'll let that be what I had said. That's fine.
I'll just say follow Erudite. I'll shout her out in the chat. She's great. Katie, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm Datkatee Doe. I'll just put my link in chat. So I don't think nothing was made. I think Professor Mead very quickly got us all on board with regulating at least the transparency element into Twitch. I mean, we all agreed that we're fine with it, which is honestly a lot more than I expected. So good for him for doing that. I do think there was productivity here. I think people focus too much on people's personality and intent when they don't know the people. Destiny's political leanings have nothing to do with whether he should or should not have been banned. And chat talks a lot about the harassment thing. I can tell you that after my short conversation with Destiny, I had some very uncomfortable comments on my podcast. That's not Destiny's fault. I think Wick would be now Destiny's banned, but I think there would be a worthwhile panel to do about what big streamers can do to stop or try to better manage their audience from harassing other people. I'm sure Destiny does all he can, because friends of mine in chat says that he does, but still a lot of people get a lot of abuse, and there should be an interesting conversation about how much responsibility a streamer has to their audience. I think that's important, and I'd love to be part of that conversation. So.
Okay, thank you for the suggestion. And thank you for being here. I always appreciate you as well. I appreciate all my panelists, I just want to say. You were all great. JasonSociety, please.
Yeah, so, I mean, let me be frank. I don't really care whether or not Destiny is banned on this platform. I could give a shit less. But I do see some holes in in TOS. I do see some holes in how people are notified about their bans, and I think that the overarching theme is that should be corrected, that we should regulate those things. I'm going to dismiss the kind of shitty qualifiers that notsoErudite threw out at me and say this. I don't care where you guys stand on the Destiny issue. We should not be like fucking splitting up friendships and hating each other over this conversation, which I've been seeing a lot out there in Twitter world and out there on Twitch. Listen, you can have a difference of opinion and still appreciate somebody, and I'm more than willing to do that, and I hope that everybody else is too. Aside from that, I do stream every day of the week, and on Sundays I do Stonercast, where we talk about all things weed, and I want to bring Professor Meat on Stonercast.
I'm coming. Next week I'll be there, assuming something doesn't happen.
You can find me at Jason_Society on Twitch or JasonSociety on Twitter. Thank you.
Okay, thank you again for being here. To my audience, thank you. Thank you for this. If you enjoyed it, I hope you did. I hope we learned something. unlike V1 here, I thought it was a little bit productive. Right after this, we are going to the Prime Kai Reverie. Several of the people here will be joining me there, probably on their own streams if you would like to watch them on theirs or mine or both. That's fine.
We're gonna do meditation in between though.
Oh, okay, fair enough. Fair enough.
Decompress.
We all should do that.
You're a hell of a debater. I will throw that out there. I totally firmly believe that. So.
And yeah, so follow me, give me subs, and if hey, there's a sub goal on the bottom. If we make that by the end of April, guess what, gang? Erudite, her husband, and several Professor B, Katie, several other people are going to come on, and we're going to do a costume debate where we're all going to dress up as characters like clowns and princesses.
I'm gonna do Quinn Harley.
There you go, and we're going to have
Harley Quinn.
An awesome in-character debate, and it should be fun, should be great, should be good times for all. So yeah, please, if you want to sub or gift subs, by all means. But yeah, I will let my panelists free from this prison that they have been trapped in for the last couple hours, and then we will get ready to go on to the Prime panel where we will be talking about censorship, and we will be talking about the slap heard around the world where Will Smith clocked Chris Rock. But yeah.
I hope there were lots of black people on that panel to talk about that. Otherwise, it's going to be just an awful discussion.
Yeah, I was thinking that too, actually.
Okay,
I
hard disagree.
True,
We're not
this is
gonna
definitely
do
a
this. We're
black
not gonna do
issue
this.
for sure.
You guys are all gonna go away now, so I can get
No,
ready.
it's
It's
You're
not
right.
about a black issue. Jesus fucking Christ.
Sarcasm,
You're so
sarcasm,
difficult.
sarcasm.
We're still
sarcasm.
streaming, gang.
We're
I
still
don't
streaming.
care.
Where did
Okay.
everyone go? Is everyone still
Yeah,
streaming
'cause
wherever
you-
they went? Is
they're
it-
I
all
don't know, but
banned
you're all
us.
getting out of here, so I can go on the Prime Kai's panel. So
Wait, Wick, I had a question.
really quick.
I don't remember what it was. Never mind.
You can DM me. You all have my DMs. Go away.
Okay.
All of you. Go away. Oy vey, gang. Oy vey. Professor Meat, you're still in here. Get out of here, dude.
Okay,
Leave.
okay.
Okay, thank you. I love them all. Stick around, gang. You thought this was spicy. You thought this was spicy. Oh, it's gonna get spicier, gang. But I gotta leave this call, so you can still hear me, but you won't see my pretty face for a second while I set things up. But yeah, give me 1 second.